Have you ever met a billionaire?
No, I
Well,
haven't.
hold on. How do you know how they think then? No, you've never met a billionaire. How do you know what they do?
Bro,
You don't.
There's a history of Donald Trump
hold
being
on,
a
no, forgot the
businessman,
history.
man. He wants to run
hold
this
on, this is
country
an
like a
important thing.
business.
It's easy to hate that which you don't know. It's easy to crap on those that you actually not talk to.
I get where he's coming from, but I don't necessarily agree.
You and Charlie, I'm Dylan. Nice to meet you. I'm a proud Catholic, Hispanic American, and former Turning Point U.S. member at Utah Tech. I agree with you on a lot of topics like the Second Amendment, traditional values, and standing up to stuff like white liberal ideology and their agenda. But
Let me guess, you're going to disagree on Israel.
No, economics specifically.
Oh, okay.
I recently went to the Bernie Sanders rally. I know you guys don't like
It's
him.
fine,
I
don't
didn't
boo him.
fit.
It's
I
fine,
didn't
it's
fit
fine.
into the crowd,
It's fine.
but I agree with him when it comes to economics. I don't support any of his social stuff, but what he said about the rural working class hit home. In rural Idaho and other parts of America I've lived in, people are drowning in medical debt, working 2 jobs, falling behind when billionaires keep winning. You say universal health care is socialism, but countries like Poland, Hungary, Croatia are socially conservative, pro-family, pro-border, and still manage to support their people with health care and better wages.
So if you guys don't know, this debate is regarding Bernie Sanders' political takes in contrast to Donald Trump's political takes. Charlie Kirk is here to be pro-Trump, and the student is here to be pro-Bernie. I don't see many pro-Bernie or socialist students flat out coming out to debate, so I'm excited to get into this one. Without further ado, let's get it.
So how do you defend American economic system that leaves behind working class conservative people for this movement you claim to fight for?
Fine. Great question. So, in Idaho, would you say that you guys have some native reservations in Idaho, right?
Yes.
Or would you say that they have great health care?
No.
They have universal health care.
Actually,
Paid for by the taxpayer. Do you think the VA is a good model for how healthcare should work?
no.
That is universal. Think about it. The VA is government doctors paid for by taxpayers. Any veteran can go. The VA is the least favorable healthcare in the entire country, and it is universal healthcare. So you need to tell me why you think we should have more of Native American reservation healthcare and more VA healthcare, because that's what Bernie Sanders wants. So make your case.
I basically just want universal health care.
No, the VA. So don't interrupt him, please. Like, you want more health care like the VA. It doesn't work. There are waiting lines. The quality of care is very low. The complaints are through the roof. Bernie Sanders wants our entire healthcare system look like the VA. Defend it.
I'm just saying that I'm not asking for, like, I know UK and Canada have super long lines in their healthcare system. Universal.
No.
healthcare
It's not even abstract. I'm talking about the VA is a real American example. It's not about the Canada. It's not the UK.
I think it should be reformed.
No, forget the reform. The VA has hundreds of billions of dollars of funding. It's taxpayer funded. The veteran pays nothing. They go there and it's all paid for. That's what Bernie Sanders wants, and it's largely a catastrophe. So show me and tell the American people why we should do more of that.
I think we should have a new system, though.
Okay, but it's not a new system. Bernie Sanders wants the VA for everybody. So I want you to know what you're advocating for when you say that you want Bernie Sanders health care. You want the VA. Okay? Here's what we want. We want, of course, more competition, price vouchers, want the hospital lobby put on defense. But honestly, we want to be able for you guys to choose the doctor of your choosing, to be able to say, you know what? I don't want to have to take 6 vaccines when I walk into this doctor. I want medical freedom. Where in the VA or in a government-run hospital, you must take those vaccines. There are no exceptions.
I do believe in some type of privatized healthcare, but I think
then you don't believe what Bernie believes.
The government should support that.
Well, hold on.
So more affordable people can afford that.
By the government, you mean the taxpayer. So
Yes.
therefore, you mean higher taxes for working people. Because every time socialism is tried, every time it is taxes on more working people. He might say it's more taxes on billionaires. He might say it's more tax on the rich. It's everyday carpenters, welders, police officers, and people that work their hands that end up paying more in taxes.
I'm starting to be a CNC manufacturer.
Great.
So,
And Bernie Sanders will raise your taxes. That's the fact. And you know what Donald Trump is fighting for right now? And Bernie Sanders doesn't have the courage to vote for it? No tax on tips. No tax on overtime.
So here's my thing. When it comes to socialism in general, socialism is a good concept. It sounds good. It really does. But in reality, it doesn't work. For example, people talk about socialism in healthcare. The problem with pure socialism in healthcare is that you won't be able to pick your own doctor. You won't be able to get guaranteed medical assistance at the top of the ability as soon as you want it, because it'll be socialized. You can't get it as fast or as efficient as possible. In a perfect world, you could, but in reality, you can't. That's why in certain countries who are purely socialist or who are more socialist than America, it takes them months to see a doctor. They may not have to pay for it, but it takes them 5-6 months to get a procedure that you can get done in America in a week. So I do, America, or every good land, or even a capitalistic land such as America, isn't purely capitalistic. That's why we pay taxes and have public services such as a public road system, public transportation, public schools. That is a form of socialism. However, having a purely socialist environment, or even a majority socialist environment, will have a lot of problems that people just don't account for.
So let's talk about you. No tax on overtime. What would that mean for your specific industry? A big, big, big income boost for your family. Massive, in fact. Yet Bernie Sanders won't even vote for the Trump tax bill that will have no tax on overtime.
And the no tax on tips does sound good, because I do also work as a bartender at a restaurant.
So let me ask you a question. Hold on, I got to put you on defense here. Last night at the Bernie Sanders rally, 12,000 people. Did Bernie Sanders say once that we should have no tax on tips?
No, I haven't heard that.
Well, because he doesn't care for the working man. He cares about hating the rich. It's not about helping the poor. It's about smashing successful people, which is against everything we as Americans stand for. It is about, we're going to fight the oligarchy by two people that have never built a business or signed the front of a paycheck in their entire life, AOC and Bernie Sanders. It's so easy to say, we're going to tax the rich. We're going to hate the rich person. Yet who are the people that have the businesses, deploy the capital? Both can be equally true. Where the middle class grows and we respect capital flows. But what Bernie Sanders wants and what he exhibits is a philosophy built on greed and envy and forced wealth redistribution. But I want you, and you came here in good faith, I want you to understand and study deeper how sinister Bernie Sanders' economic philosophy is. He panders to people that quite honestly are suffering economically and promises them free stuff and that we're going to take away all the wealth from the rich people. It's not that simple and it's not that easy. And every time his philosophy is tried, it results in the degradation of a society, the downfall of innovation, the entrance into the second and the third world, and sometimes even outright murder in concentration camps and over 100 million people dead. Again, I have to get back to this. Who would you rather trust to design a prosperous economy?
How do you know Donald Trump and Elon Musk are not just keeping money for themselves? They're both billionaires too.
But
I'm just saying.
See, but hold on. Let me ask you a very blunt question. Have you ever met a billionaire?
No, I haven't.
Hold on. How do you know how they think then? No, you've never met a billionaire. How do you know what they do?
Bro,
you don't.
There's a history of Donald Trump being a businessman, man. He wants to run this
this is an important thing. It's easy to hate that which you don't know. It's easy to crap on those that you actually not talk to.
I get where he's coming from, but I don't necessarily agree. And the reason I don't agree is because that would be the same instance of me saying, have you ever met a Nazi? No, I haven't. Have you ever met a white supremacist? No. Have you ever met a slave owner? No. But you still know fundamental traits of them. I will say this though. Just having a blind hatred for billionaires or even high achieving millionaires or basically anyone who's successful is not a fair mantra to live life on. And Charlie Kirk was actually right when he said that Bernie Sanders does benefit off of the financial insecurities of a lot of people. He does. He panders to it to an extent because I think Bernie Sanders knows a lot of things he's fighting for are unrealistic, but he has to say certain things because a lot of his voters are financially insecure and they need that as a sort of hope, and he feeds them a false sense of hope. However, just because you haven't met someone doesn't mean you don't know how they think. But the fundamental flaw of what Charlie Kirk is saying, such as a lot of Bernie Sanders' motives and tactics are just unfair. I agree with that. And it's just delusional to believe that pure socialist ideals will just save you or save America. But let's continue.
Because that billionaire, let's take Albertsons, for example, that named your stadium. Albertsons employs tens of thousands of people in the state, and good on them for doing it, to make sure that you guys can get the groceries you need to feed your family. But guess what? He became a billionaire because of it. But you know what? He should become a billionaire for the people he employs and the risks that he took, and also the good that has done for this city and the charity that's been back to the community here.
Let me talk to Donald Trump personally to see if you're correct or not.
You said billionaires. Again, I could go through Trump or Elon Musk, but how about the other? You have Melaleuca that named the stadium. You go after billionaire after billionaire. You know what you find? Someone that had a really good idea, that was able to risk it all, that probably employed over 100,000 people and made a lot of other people rich. The question should never be, how do we take money away from people? That's easy. That's theft. You do that when you're 3 years old. The question that society has to answer instead is, how do you create wealth? That is a much harder question. When you go visit sub-Saharan Africa, they're trying to figure that out. They wonder why we're able to have buildings as beautiful as this, and why we're able to have, the standard of living that we enjoy in America. And the answer is because we have market principles where entrepreneurs can take risks and are able to get a reward at the end of it. Now, should we ever get to a place where the middle class is shrinking to such a great degree? No, that's why Donald Trump's agenda is to first and foremost rebuild the American middle class, not necessarily pander to the elite interests. And let me close with this, just as a point. The wealthiest counties in America almost all vote for Democrats and vote for Joe Biden. The Democrat Party is a party of the permanent wealthy class, where the Republican Party...
I agree. I think both parties are.
But hold on. But let me just... Bernie Sanders is a fraud and a fake, because as he is talking about fighting the oligarchy, everything that he would do would crush innovation, crush entrepreneurship, and not actually help the American middle class. And this is why. He refuses to stand with Donald Trump every time he does something good that would actually help middle class workers. Final thought.
But that was true about Donald Trump. Rural towns wouldn't be dying. Donald Trump gave cat cuts to corporations that hired Goldman Sachs elites and didn't touch the wage system. The working class got slogans and sweets, while the billionaires he called out got richer. That's not draining the swamp, that's filling it.
When Trump was there for 4 years, rural America actually saw more wage gains than urban America. For 4 years.
From Obama's economy.
Hold on, that's rubbish, man.
The next president inherits the economy based on what president?
First of all, that's just such an oversimplification, sloppy, and shallow analysis of how economics works. But most importantly, and I think you can acknowledge this, is that Donald Trump, what he did in the first term, we saw a blue-collar miracle, a blue-collar boom. The people that worked in manufacture saw their wages actually go up higher than the top 1%. And that is why blue-collar workers voted for Donald Trump so significantly this last election. That's why Trump is doing tariffs on China. Again, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. And finally, you guys know that gas...
Democrats are super socially progressive and don't relate to the working class anymore.
Gas prices...
Trump won.
Gas prices are going down dramatically, and you guys are going to see...
It's still $3.10. I thought it would be $2 by now.
Again, it depends on where you are in the country, but as far as West Texas oil crude, it was at $75 a barrel almost a week and a half ago. Now it's near $55 a barrel. I'm not sure where it is today. But let me just kind of close with this. It's easy and tempting, and I want to just caution you, because you're a Catholic and a man of faith. I want you to pray about this, and I want you to think about this. It's tempting to want to believe in socialism. It is a fact that socialism, before you get to the second sentence, socialism violates 2 out of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not covet, and thou shalt not steal.
So what about the Eastern European countries that have this sign of socialistic...
Well, let's talk about it.
Like Hungary, Poland?
Yes, Hungary is very socially conservative, and they have some socialist, ideas. Let me ask you a question. Can you name a single Hungarian company?
I don't know any Hungarian companies.
Can you name a single Hungarian entrepreneur?
Not I've heard of.
Can you name a single Polish entrepreneur?
No, because I don't live in Poland.
No, hold on. But you can name Chinese companies and Japanese companies and Korean companies. The point being is this. Be careful when you indulge in the cheap money of socialism. Because all of a sudden, you don't become very innovative. You don't lead the world in AI or tech or in the top companies. And so, yes, okay, yeah, we could redistribute the wealth and become a mediocre country where wages kind of stagnate. We're no longer a free society where people flock here to start businesses. I think that's radically dangerous. I think it's radically dangerous for us to compromise on a bedrock of mediocrity. There's some things Hungary likes that I do. There's something Poland likes that I do.
Charlie Kirk is making a lot of good points here. And this is what I was basically implying when you talk about making America more socialist. When you make America more socialist and less capitalist, there's less incentives for innovation and there's less incentives for financial growth. So when people think of these issues, they think of it being America will remain what it is like now and be more socialist. But no, you'll be stripping America of a lot of its financial powers and a lot of its financial resources to make it fully socialist. And that's just the truth, whether you support it or don't support it. So that's why it sounds good in theory. It sounds good in a dreamland. It sounds good in a dreamland. Everyone gets to go to the best hospitals. Everyone gets to go to the best schools. Everyone gets to go to the best colleges. Everyone gets the best food at the best grocery stores. But in reality, that's not how it's going to be. But nonetheless, let me know what you guys think about this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.